When I went down, everyone was dead.
It's like it's not real.
I'm not crazy. I really don't want to be insane.
Nick's an addict.
I look at you, and I see someone who knows the meaning of necessity. How many times should you have died?
I don't know. I knew long enough.
Invisible.
I know you die.
Season 2, Episode 8, titled Grotesque, was one of the most polarising Fear the Walking Dead episodes ever released. This controversial episode split fans straight down the middle. However, in recent years, like many early seasons of Fear, it has been receiving high praise. The episode has aged like fine wine, so let's delve into the Mexican wasteland and explore the storyline and the controversies surrounding this episode. This episode begins where the previous one left off, as Nick decides to leave the group in pursuit of a community who respect the dead. After receiving some rations and water, he starts his 100-kilometer trek to Tijuana. However, after his first day of hiking, he arrives at a bungalow that he assumes is uninhabited. After getting comfortable, he settles down for the night, only to be awoken by a mother and a child, the mother swinging a bat at him frantically, injuring his head and his leg, forcing him out of the bungalow and leaving him with no food or water. After this incident, Nick is left wandering the Mexican desert all by himself. And this is where the episode shines for me, as it shows the true horror of survival and the brutal reality of this new world. After Nick scavenges some water on the highway, he comes across some hostile cartel members who are shown killing a helpless old man. Nick hides, but the static sound of a radio reveals his location, and they shoot at him, forcing him to run off the main highway and deep into the desert. This is where the bleakness of Nick's situation truly starts to set in. He is alone, with no food or water, but he reluctantly treks on, using the little energy he has left. We see Nick try and eat cactus flesh to rehydrate before throwing it back up, finally finding an abandoned van just before nightfall to camp out till the next morning. But Nick's luck seems to be at an all-time low as he wakes up to 2 wild dogs biting at his leg, ripping a chunk of flesh off, and he is forced to quickly climb onto the roof of the van and wait it out. All the barking from the dogs has attracted a herd of walkers, and we see the walkers attack and kill the dogs before moving on after hearing a car in the distance. This not only gives Nick the chance to feast on some dead dog, as he hasn't eaten in days, but also gives him an idea. Nick is one of the first people in the Walking Dead universe to figure out that you can walk with the dead if you cover your scent. So after dispatching a single walker, he coats himself in guts and continues his journey with the dead. After walking with the dead, he comes across the same cartel members that shot at him previously, but this time he's blending in with the walkers, slowly making up ground before the walkers kill 2 of the 3 men, with the 3rd one fleeing. He watches as the walkers devour the men in front of his very own eyes. The camera pans away and we see that Nick is being observed by some people in the distance who we will later get introduced to, but they note his pure determination and his sheer will to live as he falls to his knees in exhaustion. And it looks like this is where Nick's journey will come to an end, as he lays motionless in the scorching sun for hours before Mother Nature grants a miracle and rain starts falling from the sky. This rain powers Nick to continue the last leg of his journey, eventually making it to his destination. A dehydrated and injured Nick wanders the streets before he is taken in by a community who we learn more about in the future. But that's the episode very briefly summed up, so let's go into why this is such a controversial episode. I think the controversy of this episode comes down to a couple of things. First of all, this is the lowest rated episode in Season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, but it also has a lot of fans who are very vocal about the support of this episode. So we almost have this Marmite situation where the fanbase either love it or they hate it. But I think upon its release it was definitely more hated, and fans felt it was a boring episode that was just a filler to show Nick's journey to Mexico and develop the character of Madison, as she dealt with the reality of her son rather being alone than with her. And I also feel like people didn't like the slow pace of this episode. However, this is one of my favourite episodes in the whole Walking Dead universe, and I think it's just so unique. I love the survival aspect of the episode, and it's something that we surprisingly don't see very much of in this franchise, and it's just done to perfection in Grotesque. Instead of getting a 10-minute compilation like when Morgan walked all the way from Atlanta to Texas, we actually see the brutality and the unforgivingness of the landscape. Secondly, this may be biased as Nick is my favourite character in the show, but we get Nick at his very best here, adapting to the new world and showing us how revolutionary he was. And okay, I'll admit it, the scene where Nick attacks the cartel members with the Horde is a bit goofy because of the way the cartel members die, but the basic premise of it is so cool, and it's such a cool concept of Nick leading the herd to attack them and them shooting at the herd and then realising who's attacking them as Nick stares them down, covered in guts. And I think the episode has grown on many people over the years. As I mentioned before, it was really badly received upon release, but now people often state this episode as one of their favourites in the Fear franchise, and I think that's purely down to the lack of true survival horror episodes, not just in Fear the Walking Dead, but in the whole franchise. I think one thing that stands head and shoulders above any episode in any Walking Dead media is the scenery within this episode. It is simply breathtaking. I mean, the wide shots set the scenes beautifully, the panoramics of the abandoned highway in the desert is just jaw-dropping. In my opinion, this is the best camera work we have seen in the whole franchise. And I think the storyline of Nick leaving his family and trying to find his identity and place in this new world and walking with the dead is just fascinating. And as mentioned before, the reality of survival is done so perfectly in this episode. I think it just culminates into an episode that is very close to perfect in my eyes, and I think a lot of people would now, after some time, agree with me on that statement. In conclusion, I encourage you all to go and rewatch this episode or watch it for the first time and tell me your opinions on it. This episode seems to have gained a lot of fans in recent years, and that's for good reason. I think this episode has a uniqueness to it and offers a stunning viewing experience. It gives an insight into the complex and fascinating character of Nick Clark, and it has some amazing music to accompany this. It just amazes me that this episode is only rated 6.8 on IMDb, but again, much like the audience's reception, the critics seem to have either loved it or hated it, as it has the most varied reviews amongst any episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. I think this is an episode that took the fanbase time to grow to love, and I think the death of Nick in season 4 makes this episode even more special, as it is an episode that you can go back and watch the true phenomenon that was Nick Clark. Thank you so much for watching, and I want to say a massive thank you for 500 subscribers. It means the world to me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.